Hello, I'm Megaphon, and this is going to be a Cardfight Vanguard game between Bruce and Zorga, where I will be piloting Zorga on the right, and my buddy Dale is going to be piloting Bruce on the left. This is not your typical Bruce deck, whereas even though we're post the grade 4s, Dale has opted to remain with a more old school build where he's mostly playing the grade 3 with grade 3 support and opting to not play grade 4 at all. And my Zorga build is actually a little different than the one I have a deck profile on this channel that you can go watch, but I will definitely update it at some point in the future. The general idea of it is just to like really put some power onto the roaming prison dragon and use him as my win condition. So we're just going to start out by doing our mulligans here. Shuffling back up. Then we're going to stand our vanguards and go from there. Yeah. Excuse me. So generally, like, Zorga would definitely just straight up lose to Bruce in most situations. Bruce is a very aggro deck, whereas Zorga is not the most defensive of decks, just since you do run a fair bit of like orders. We have no shield, but the build I currently made is very aggressive. I think it's very strong, and I'm quite happy with it. So I win the roll. No, unfortunately my ride deck is not correctly set up, but we can quickly fix that and ride around to our chain, and then simply use its effect to Soul Blast one to draw 2 cards, and then from my hand I have to discard a order. If I can't discard an order, I have to discard 2. So it's a nice easy card draw. That's gonna go, and just do a ride from his right deck as well. And since he went second, he gets to draw off of his starter. And he's going to pull his starter back and get a free soul charge to get that soul going for his Bruce turn later. Unfortunately, his first attack gets me critted, which is not great. And I lose a prison dragon, which is doubly not great. But at the end of the world, if I get an early heal, I can easily put it 2-drop. And then after that, he's going to pass the turn to me. So I'm in not a bad shape. I got 2 Counter Blasts to play. I'm just simply going to ride up to my oh my god, Skull Dragon? I forget what it's called all of a sudden. That's not good. Husk Dragon. It's a fast dragon, that's what it is. And then on place on Vanguard, I can pull a order that I grabbed that I discarded earlier from Randor Chain, and then I'll play a Shadow Cloak. Shadow Cloak is a very nice card. It lets you set up your drop because you basically reveal a order from your deck, and if it does not exist in your drop zone, it gets discarded. The odd thing about it though is that if you reveal something that is in your drop zone, it just gets shuffled back into your deck. So I decided to go for Grief Despair Rejection, which is the MVP card of this deck because it just puts so much power on your board as long as you're on Spiritual Zorga, which of course you will be. There's no reason not to be. So I'll just swing, and I get a nice 2 damage on him there as well, thanks to my little board. You can do a lot of things early, like if I had a dragon in the drop zone and I had the spiritual condensation, I could have easily like brought him back, give him some power crit, and go from there. But not this game. So that's just gonna go and just ride up to his grade 2, which if I remember correctly, yeah, it's gonna move. It should move his starter into the soul, and I think he gets another soul charge if I remember correctly how Bruce works. Or I guess it's just a draw. I guess it's just a draw. And again, it's gonna swing on to me. Not a whole lot of plays really to do early with Bruce in general, and with the build that Dale goes for, he just kind of swings early until he can get to his final rush. And surprisingly, he did just attack my Shadow Cloak, which is fine by me. I'm more than happy to lose it. It's just as useful in the drop as it is on the board. This part I'm just deciding what I need to discard to get to my Zorga. And here we go. Now we can start to make some plays. I got my Zorga. Simply use its skill to counterblast one to bring back something from the drop zone. Choose Hendrina that I discarded earlier. That's a nice triple mill from the top of my deck, and I did get a Prison Dragon, which is excellent. I'll be able to just easily revive it here by casting Alchemagic. Quite recorded a few days ago, so I can't quite remember. So yeah, we're going to go into a Spiritual Condensation, and then Grief, Despair, Rejection from my drop. So the idea is to, like, if you're unfamiliar with Alchemagic, you basically like activate an order from your hand and an order from your drop. You basically combine the two effects together, so you pay all the costs and then you use those effects and they all go off together. I did notice here that I forgot to pay the one counterblast for Grief, Despair, Rejection. It probably won't matter, but yeah, I'll have to definitely watch out for that, because that's not good. So basically I used Spiritual Condensation to bring back Randor Chain off of the Soul Blast that I paid for, and then just give the power to the 3 units I had on board, and then at the after I've completed all that, Roaming Prison Dragon, like, from the drop zone, basically revives himself. And if you played an order, so if you play one order, you can either give it a 10,000 or crit. If you Alchemagic, you get both, which is excellent. Although he does have only 5,000 base power, it's why it's really nice to have, like, something behind him to power him up. So I'm just gonna swing out my Vanguard first and get a nice crit, and I will definitely just give the power to my Prison Dragon, and then second is actually Nectar, which will probably be very useful later. So I get a nice 4 damage, and like pushing the Bruce player to 4 damage early is really good. It puts pressure on him, especially since I will have natural crits on the board during the turn. Now, of course, that does need to guard this, and it's swinging for a good 25 here with a crit. And he did not get, I think he got maybe 1 defensive, I forget. And I'll just swing my rear guard, which is not as strong, but it's still pretty good. I think it's coming up to, looks to be 30, 40. So it's just, so with the Grief, Despair, Rejection, you can put some pretty big numbers on the board, and because the Prison Dragons get the natural crits, it's a lot of pressure. Your opponent does have to break their hand, and in fact Dale needs to perfect guard my rear guard swing, or else he would lose this game. Then we'll pass the turn over to Dale. He's of course going to ride up to his Bruce, and he's got the beautiful SLR, or SLR, that might just be for Lyrical, I forget. And he's just going to attack into it. Since he's not in Final Rush, and the way Dale built his deck, pretty much everything requires Final Rush, which is gets really dangerous once you are there, but until you are, it does definitely like lack. And I have a Zorga in hand, so I can Persona Ride here, get the draw, get the 10,000 in my front row. And now Dale's in a little bit of trouble. I simply need to kill the 1 dragon I have on the field. And unfortunately, I do have 2 of my Prison Dragons are in damage here in game 1, but I can simply use Zorga, kill the Prison Dragon by calling on top of it with my Headhunter, which will, of course, reduce the cost of my Alchemagic by 1 counterblast for the turn. I'm just taking a peek here what I have. Not a whole lot, since I only got the 1 Hendrina play here to get just 1 mil so far, which is not ideal. Arguably, you want more things in your drop zone, more toolbox abilities. There's not a ton of things you want, but Prison Dragons, of course. So we're simply going to, from here, play same thing: the Grief, Despair, Rejection, and Spiritual Condensation. Now this time I don't need to worry about the counterblast of Grief, Despair, Rejection, because I do have that Headhunter that I placed on the board this turn. And I will use Spiritual Condensation to bring back my starter, since it's probably the best target I have, since there's very few things, and the only great ones I run are Headhunters and the Perfect Guards, actually, in this build. And then I'll just power up my 2 units in my front row and the Headhunters, so that when I boost, it'll of course boost the dragon. and then the dragon will bring back himself. Get a 10,000 a crit. And because of Alchemage, Random Change gets 2, and Headhunter gets 5. So this is another very stacked, very strong board. Natural crit on one of their columns. And that's a, I think, 35 column if I remember correctly. Maybe 40 in fact. And I do get a crit and a heal. So tons of power going on to that. And Dale did not guard this attack. So unless he gets a heal here. And he does not. So that will be game 1. Nice win for me. Which I was surprised if that's the idea. If I can rush down to the Bruce player, I can definitely push. If I can push him to 4, after that, like the pressure is just there, and I can definitely win with Zorga because I can put so much power on the board. They have to use so much of their hand every turn to just guard. So here we go, game 2. Gonna do. It says post mulligan. Nope, we're doing our mulligans right now. Alright. Just deciding. Basically, like, if you play Zorga build right now, you kind of want to have 1 or 2 prison dragons in your hand early, so you can simply discard it for your riot cost, for your riot deck, and then now they're in their drop zone, they're exactly where you want them to be. Other than that, you just, of course, go back triggers, maybe matchup dependent, you can hold on to a Perfect Guard. For Bruce, I don't think it's that necessary. Well, at least Dale's version of Bruce here, which does not have the grade 4. So we're going to finish up our mulligans here. Move on. And see what we go. I believe Dale decided to go first. No, I'm going first. Alright, so same thing. I discard a card from my hand, ride Randor Chain, Soul Blast 1 to draw 2, and then choose an order from my hand and discard it. And simply pass the turn. Yep, but not much of action, not a lot of action until you get to at least grade 2, even grade 3 really with these 2 decks. There you go. Right up, discard, right up, pull back the starter, Soul Charge 1. Doesn't get more simple than that, and then he swings with no trigger. And I, of course, don't guard early because I do need a little bit of Counter Blast to activate my skills. And we'll ride up to my Black Tusk Dragon, simply return the condensation from my drop zone back to my hand. Now having a dragon in my drop and the condensation, I could make a play here. I forget what I had in my hand. If there was something, I get a good front row, but apparently I guess I did not, so I'm just going to swing in with the Black Tusk Dragon, get a crit off the no guard, which is very nice. I want to get that Bruce player to 4 damage as quickly as I can, put him on the back foot, have to worry about of the extra crits on the back foot. So Dale's going to draw for his turn and decide what he wants to discard for his ride. There we go. Going to move it in. There you go. Now it's pretty much set up. Once he rides Bruce, he'll have his 5 cards in soul. And I decide not to guard, and I don't get critted, which is excellent. Which passes the turn to me. Now that is unfortunately that is 2 of my Brief Despairs right there in damage, which is not ideal. I do run maybe a little too few orders in this current version because I did cut some of the orders to simply have more Zorgas in, because if you've watched the previous deck profile I made for this, I wasn't running no Zorgas on the deck, and I decided to just go all in on the Prison Dragon and power him as much as I can. So here I'll just ride up to Zorga, put a Shadow Cloak on the board, get some more. I'll get an order into my drop zone too, so I can Alchemagic, which I do need to Alchemagic every turn, or else my dragons will be significantly weaker, sometimes maybe not even worth playing. So you simply get Brief Despair, and I will have that Spiritual Body Condensation in my hand from earlier. So again, we'll just simply use Zorga's skill, bring back a Headhunter. This will reduce the counterblast cost for my next Alchemagic by 1. Hopefully I won't forget to. I won't need to pay. I can't forget to pay it if I don't need to pay it at all. And from here, going to play, of course, the Spiritual Body Condensation and Alchemy Magic it with Grief Despair. So we're going to pay all the costs. 1 Soul Blast. And don't need to play a Counterblast because of the Headhunter. So I'll bring back Randor Chain. Randor Chain will get a nice 2k because I will. We'll get 5k for Spiritual Body Condensation off it. That's ability skill because remember it will choose a unit from your drop zone, call it to the board, and it will get 5k. And then I will simply give the 10,000 power to both my Vanguard and my 2 remaining rear guards, and call Randor Chain behind the dragon. It might be a better option to put Randor Chains behind the Shadow Cloak here and make sure I have the Headhunter behind the Spiritual Dragon because that's just a better column, but it's not the end of the world here either. So we're swing with the Zorga. We'll see what happens here. I'm assuming he will try and guard it for something. Zorga is swinging for 23 here. Thanks. He decides not to guard, and unfortunately I had no triggers. But I do see a Perfect Guard going away, which is excellent. That helps me push to win this game. Swinging with the Dragon. Not the best column because it's only swinging for about 20, not 28 I think. If my math is right, if the math off the top of my head is right, to the counters. It should be 5, 10, 20, maybe 32. But he will guard that with an easy guard. That's a relatively easy guard, but pulls cards from hand, and then he'll simply take the last swing. So not as strong as I could be, but it's still like puts him at 4, pulls some cards out of his hand, puts me in a better position. And again, he'll ride up to his Bruce and simply swings. And since it's the first time he's on his grade 3, he is not in Final Rush. So he reveals a Marjorie and a critical. So I will here take 2 damage. I'll take a front trigger, which is not great, not a good defensive trigger, but not in this situation because no more units. Now then, for my turn, of course, I'm going to go try and kill him. Now I know Dale's got a relatively big hand, so I do need to play some cards, get him gone. I'll get the Persona Ride, get the draw, get the 10,000 in my front row. Probably just explaining a few things here, or discussing like how the game is flowing right now. So we'll use Zorga skill, get something. I do have a Spiritual Body Condensation in hand. I forget if I actually have an order in hand, because if I don't have an order in hand, it's not going to be very useful. And I seem to take that back. Oh, I must have. Looks like I decided to do something different. And of course, this is just a little local we have. We don't really shark each other that much. So our general rule is like if the game state can be easily returned to what it was, we'll usually allow it. They're more for fun and competitive. We have a relatively small Vanguard group, so we're gonna use Hendrine instead to get the mill. And then we're gonna look to see what we're gonna do for Zorga. I'm deciding if I want to pop it, and I decide I do to make the Soul Blast cost for Alchemy Magic completely free. That's a very nice thing about Hendrina. And then I'm gonna bring her back, get some more mills, get some more cards in the drop zone. I'm guessing I'm probably like looking to get 15 in drop so I can get Nectar off. If you're unfamiliar, I forget its full name right now, but Nectar basically, you choose one of your rear guards, you get 5k per every 5 cards in your drop zone. And if you have 15 cards or more, you will then give that unit an extra critical. Looks like we're going to go with Gather Upon Me, Wandering Souls, and a Spiritual Body Condensation. So the cost for that is discarding an order, and it'll give my Vanguard an extra, specifically Zorga, an extra drive, and then Spiritual Body Condensation, of course, will revive 1 unit from the drop and give it 5k. So I'll probably grab probably my starter or any great one that's there. It looks like I'm gonna go for the Perfect Guard there just to have the most power, and it'll get an extra 5k on top of that. And then from there, I get my dragon. So this board is not as scary as it could be because I am missing the Grief Despair rejection, which unfortunately did go to damage, which is definitely an issue. But the extra drive on Zorga, it does definitely makes it scary. So we're gonna swing on Zorga. That's a on the with the Persona ride. I get an extra 10k, of course. So that's gonna be if I can do my math real quick in my head, which is never great. I'm not the best quick math guy, but that's 23 plus 6. So that's 29 plus 5 looks like 24. I'm guessing. So it's relatively easy to guard. We're just gonna perfect guard that. Tendrina, Headhunter, and a heal. So just the one trigger. So we'll give it. Of course, we're gonna power up our dragon. We're gonna heal. We're gonna get that rejection into the drop zone for next turn. Alright, so my dragon. So dragon's gonna swing pretty. Really strong. That extra trigger, definitely helping out. Pushing him to. Ooh, what's that? 10, 20, 30, 32, 42, around 42. That's why I always use dice to keep track. Big ones, 10Ks, little ones, 5Ks, 2Ks, smaller amounts. Dale's like dropping a fair bit here, just a guard, 3 cards, that's pretty good. And then my little Hendrina column here is not too good, so he's of course just going to take it. But that pushes him to 5 damage. So he's right into kill range right now. However, now he'll start his turn. He will be in Final Rush. So now all of his abilities will be able to go off. So this is where Dale's deck does like start to kick in, start to be trying. Now I'm still got 3 damage. So 5 attacks is a little scary because I can't take too many of them, and if he gets any crits, I could be in difficult trouble. So we're gonna go off. He's gonna put unfortunately the glare is there a little strong, but that is 2 Marie Joies to board, and then he played his order, which will give 10,000 to his front row. I'm deciding how to position these because Marie Joie will give herself 10k, but you got to move something to soul. So the position is actually a little important. How you want to boost. So you can put a Dover, the critical that moves to the soul after boosting for giving something else 2k, and what looks like to be another trigger. So he's dumped his hand on the board in an attempt to just like rush me down because he will be able to. Because he will have a Bruce skill active, so he'll be able to restand both his Marie Joies, and it'll be pretty strong. Considering they will be able to get their abilities off twice. There you go. Marie Joie, so he's going to move one of his rear guards to soul to activate Marie Joie, which will give him a soul charge and 10,000 power. And the draw. That's going to be 10 to, I think Marie Joie is swinging for 12, or is it 13? I forget. I think it might be 12. But I will simply take that first hit, and then he will simply move his Dober back into the soul and give the other Marie Joie another 10k. So now that Marie Joie is swinging for like a 32, maybe 40 actually, yeah, because it's going to be her own skill as well. So like 40, 42, 43. So, and those powers stay, so when once he swings with his Vanguard, those are going to restand and they're going to be just as powerful. So I'm going to have to drop a fair few cards to guard. Luckily, I can bring back Hendrina back from the grave easily using Zorga's skill. Now he's going to use his Vanguard skill. So on attack, he's going to Soul Blast 5 and restand both his rear guards. So we're going to drop 15k shield, 30k shield, so that should be 2 or no pass. So that's a critical. Looks like maybe there's a big confusion how much math we have to do here. But I think so. Zorga that's 13, and Bruce right now is at 23. I think he doesn't get any more power. So 23. So the highest he can go is 43, and so he would need to get 2 to pass here. So it looks like he is deciding to simply Give it to his Marie Joie. There's the draw trigger on top of that, so that's not great. So that's more power on his rear guards. So I survived that, but now I got another nasty thing coming. Because they're critting more power to that Marie Joie. Now he's out of rear guard, so he can't power him up anymore. But I'm gonna take, yeah. So I'm gonna take the non-critted one, which actually gives me a clutch defensive trigger there. So I should be able to guard this now. Yeah, there. That's 30 on the board. So there you go. Clear it. So I had to burn my hand, but I'm in prime position to win this. However, the fate not in my favor. If I remember correctly, I don't think I have an order in hand because I've lost a fair few of them just to damage. And I mill another one with Hendrina there. I'm in a bit of a pickle here. Not great, not ideal. But we're gonna do some counting here, maybe. If I'm counting for 15, I'm pretty sure I'm pretty close to 15. If not, I might have actually more there. Just looking at it. Cause I know I discarded Nectar last turn to use the cost for Gather up onto me, and looks like I won't be using my Shadow Cloak skill from I'll place down from hand. I think I have plenty. I have a ton of orders. Yeah, I'm double checking. Probably double checking if Nectar was there. So yeah, unfortunately I don't have an order at hand to Alchemagic here, so I'm just gonna have to do a lot of vanilla swings, which I know Dale's got 2 triggers in hand, so this is gonna be relatively easy to guard unless I get some triggers here. Yeah, so he's still thinking. Still thinking. Probably figuring out like how much, if he gets the triggers, what he has to guard. Because he is at 5 damage. Next hit he takes on the Vanguard, he'll lose. Now this is swinging for very low. I think because without anything else on the board, that is simply swinging. What is that? So 6 on the rear guard plus 13. So that's 19. So it's pretty low. Might be discussing the rest of the sides as well. So, but again, without any triggers, those are relatively low. That's 16 on the Hendrina column and 18 on the Shadow Cloak column. I might be discussing something else with another table as well here. Yeah, I actually don't remember why is this taking so long on the swing. Just the guard. Well, so that's gonna be a 1 to pass, and I do whiff on the triggers. So I'll simply swing behind Drina. So at this point, like, I know he has 2 triggers in hand, and he will be easily able to guard both of those. There's the 1 trigger and the second. So unfortunately, I did fail to kill him this turn. So now I am in a fair bit of trouble. Not only is my deck low, but my drive checks there was a grade 1 and a Prison Dragon. So my hand's probably very low on guard. And if you can even put like just 2 rear guards, and you get a board about as powerful as this last one, about as powerful as the last one, and I will be in pretty big trouble here. But he is in Final Rush, so all of his abilities will kick in. So he won't be Persona riding, but he's got a Dover. He's got more rear guards. Looks like he's playing his I forget what that one is called. Maybe not a Hell Diver. That was an old Spike Brothers card. But I think he's just using it to have something to boost the soul to power up his Marie Joies here. And that grade 1 is also very good because I think it gets 5k. It gets power based on how many cards in the soul. So he's gonna swing as Marie Joie. looks like he's going to simply use that card to proc Majora, which makes sense, because he's going to want his Dober to give more power. So he gets a draw, he gets a soul charge, so he's definitely going to have also his 5 souls just to get his Bruce off as well. This is swinging for, looks like, what was that, 22, 8, so yeah, looks like I can guard this pretty, well, I say pretty easily, my hand's probably like suffering here, that might be one of my only triggers in hand left. Yeah, power up his Maria, secondary Maria using the Dober, move it to the soul. And then we're using Maria's Jaw Skill, moving his last rear guard to soul. So you got a soul charge, you got a draw. Give 10k. So just swinging for a nice 32. I have the guard for that as well. Those wonderful friend triggers give an extra 5k shield, so they're a nice 20 on themselves. And I think it was a bit of confusion here if I had enough to guard. But I think my math is right because the Zorga's at 13, right? So, yeah. So that's put 25 on the shield on the board. So just the shield is slightly higher than the Marie Joie skill. So the 13 on base Zorga, more than enough. Fortunately here, it's rear guards restand thanks to Bruce. Bruce is swinging and I decide to not guard. Hoping for the heal here. And there he gets the crit. So that's going to be game 2. Goes to Bruce. So yeah, unfortunately I didn't get the orders I needed on that kill play because he was right there. He got 5 damage. I draw into an order and I can not only can I revive my dragon, but I had the nectar in the drop zone. Just unfortunate. But we move on to game 3 for all the marbles. And again, I'm going first. So I once again simply use Randor Chain. Let's use a Soul Blast, discard an order. Well, draw 2, then discard the order. And we've seen this twice already. Nothing's really going to change. Dale's going to ride up with a discard, pull his rear guard back to give him a soul charge, and he'll do a swing on my Vanguard, which I will no guard. First, I get critted again, and I take a heal and a heal, which is a little unfortunate. Double heal right off the bat. So I take 1 less damage early, but I do lose those 2 trigger units, which are quite helpful if I run out of steam late, like I did last game, or I brick a little bit. Well, we're going to ride into Husk Dragon, grab give the Despair and Agony from my drop that I discarded last turn. And unless I can do a good play with either Hendrina or Shadow Cloak, I'm probably just going to swing with my Rigor. But I do have a Hendrina, so I do want to play that. Get the mill, get stuff in my drop zone going, because I'm going to be fishing for dragons. I need those in the drop zone. Looks like we'll play the Shadow Cloak just to get more orders in the drop zone, get that stack going. Currently I have 2, so we're going to add this Spiritual Body Condensation. We're going to pull the Spiritual Body Condensation from the deck, reveal it, and it'll be discarded after. And of course we will shuffle our deck. I like to do a nice 5 ripple shuffle, so take half the deck and place it between the remaining deck, and if you do that 5 times you get a very nice shuffle, very on par to like making 6 stacks on the board and just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And from here we're just going to swing with Husk, and we're going to get no trigger check, so just the 1 damage here, but I do have 2 rear guards, so it's either going to be more damage or at least pull some cards early from his hand. And every bit of damage I can get early is very important for Bruce. Now Dale is going to drop 2 triggers there to guard, 2 15k triggers to guard that, because he also knows that if I need to get on top of him, get him to lethal and then drop some dragons on the board with the power up I can give it, it can get very scary very fast. And a few lucky triggers here or there can easily win you the game. So Dale's gonna discard and ride up to his grade 2. Pulling his card back, and unfortunately glare is too bad to see here, but if I remember, that it's one of the diver card that like gets an extra crit on final rush if I remember correctly. So he's gonna go after my rear guard, which is perfectly fair, and because that unit hit, he can retire. He's gonna go for rear guard swing, and I forget that rear guard skill's name. You think I remember? I've played so much Bruce games. And I know if he hits it, we're going to soul charge. I'm going to try and get him as little soul as he can, but the amount of soul charging his deck can do, it's really not matter. But I'll definitely guard, not take too much damage early, so I can take more damage late. That's the idea, because like right now they're swinging relatively low. One card will guard, whereas later, like we saw last game, double Mirage Walls, they're getting a ton of power on those very easily with the Dobers. So we're gonna ride up to our Zorga here. We're gonna play. Use his skill, kind of last one to bring back a Headhunter. That will reduce our Alchemagic Soul Blast by 1. So if we use anything, which I can say there are, the only really cards that will Soul Blast in orders right now that I'm playing are the Grief, Despair, Rejection. So it will make it free. And from there I'm going to play a Shadow Cloak, set up. But it looks like didn't have a viable target there. So, possibility that I might have all the other ones in my hand, or the ones I need in my hand. So would you get the shuffle? Like, it's a possibility like if I have all the Grief Despairs in my hand, I don't need to. So yeah, so we're gonna play Grief, Despair, and Agony with the Spiritual Condensation. So same play as always. We're gonna pay the cost. We're gonna Soul Blast the Rancor Chain, so we can then use the Spiritual by Condensation to bring back Rancor Chain, and we'll give the power to the rear guards. Again, looking back on this, I really should be prioritizing to put the Headhunter underneath the Dragon for future. Now on this turn, it works pretty well because Rancor Chain does get the 5k from Spiritual by Condensation, but going forward, he will only get 2 off the Alchemagic instead of the full 7 he's getting here, whereas the Headhunter does get 5. I'll swing with my Vanguard, and looks like I do get a trigger there, so looks like a heal. So I'll give the power to my Dragon, and I'll recover 1 damage. And that will take 1 damage, which looks to be a Perfect Guard. So bonus for me. Oh, and I guess I did get the crit as well. So that was lots of damage. Oh no, okay, so yeah, so I swung on the Dragon, and he just simply took it. So that puts him at 5, and then I'm gonna have to do some quick math here. What should, since I put the triggers there, it should be, what is that, 10, 20, 30, 35, so plus the 5 on his skill. What's that? Oh my god. 35. 38 plus 5. Come on, Jazz. 33? 43. So that's pretty meaty. Pretty meaty. That extra 5 for having played an order this turn helps. So, and Dale's going to take it. So that puts him at, once again, lethal. So right now I'm feeling pretty good. If I can do a similar play as I did earlier, it's good. And Dale will still not be in Final Rush, so a lot of his abilities will not be going off until he is in that Final Rush position, which is only if your Bruce is on the board at the beginning of your ride phase. So discard from hand and bring up the Bruce. Most likely he'll simply swing with all his rear guards. I'm at 1 damage, so I'll probably just take most of these, unless I have the guards in my hand. He might be actually deciding to go after my rear guards here. Let's see what he does. I said I forget all the details of how this game went. It was recorded a few days ago. I'm swinging on his rear guard first here, which is not the best move. I'm confirming because I remember that hits the whole column, but because he's not in Final Rush, he only gets the on hit, which will give him a soul charge. So he does take out the Shadow Cloak. Seeing as like he's not in Final Rush and none of his abilities go off, it probably would be better to simply swing with his Vanguard to try and get so he can get triggers, and if he needs to, put him on his rear guards. If he gets double crits, we could like give it a lot fair amount of power, especially if I have no guard. So, okay. Yep, moving on to the Vanguard swing. Oh, I forget. Looks like he was able to pull something out of his soul there. Probably What an ability! I'm as familiar I am with Bruce. I'm also very unfamiliar. But here comes the Vanguard swing. I will decide not to guard. He gets a heal, which is unfortunate for me. So he'll heal once here, so that puts him out of lethal. Give more power to his rear guard, and second check is no trigger. So I'll take a damage, which will be a crit, which will give me a nice defensive trigger, which makes it easier to guard. Some quick math here. 10, 20, 25, I'm guessing that's 8, so 32, 33. Do my 23, so 15k should be able to guard this relatively easy. If I got it in hand, which I assume I do, yes. So I'll simply guard that for 15 extra shield. So we'll go back to my turn. So unfortunately, Dale is now at 4, so he's not quite at lethal, but having dragons, if I can put some dragons on the board, give them the crit and power, I will be golden. So I will Persona Ride here, get a 10,000 to the front row and draw. And deciding how I want to do this. The order of operation will be important since I already have the dragon on the board here. I'm going to want to be able to kill it so it can revive itself. Also seeing what orders I have to work with. I'm assuming I have, if I remember correctly, I do have several of the Grief Despair in hand, Grief Despair Rejection. So we're going to simply use Zorga's skill to revive Hendry on top of my roaming prison dragon, and to give the mill 3. And unfortunately, I did lose both my overtrigger and a perfect guard there, and that dragon did not go to drop. So that is unfortunate. That mill was probably not worth it in the long run. However, you do need to go for those plays as Zorga. So we're going to go Spiritual Biconstation. I'm going to pair it with, I'm assuming it's going to be a Brief Despair Rejection. Yes, sir. Now we'll need to pay the full costs of both of these. Yep, you can do any Soul Blast. Again, it seems I've forgotten to pay the cost for Counterblast for my Grief Despair Rejection, because that Headhunter was not on the board. And I do need to pay the cost before I play the other Headhunter, so that's another misplay on my part. I do need to watch for that going forward. I'll try and keep that in mind. So I did make a nice scary board, though. So we're going to go for it. We're going to go for lethal, and he's going to do not guard. That is risky, because I get one crit and I just win. And Dale gets his over trigger. So 100 million to his Vanguard. He gets a draw. This basically peters out my play here. So I can no longer use this impressive board to kill him, unfortunately. So I'm just going to probably going to have to go for his rear guards here. Fin his board. He's going to decide to not defend that rear guard. Oh, actually. So let's do some math here. If my math is correct on the Prison Dragon, that's going to be 10, 20, 30, 38. So, not too bad. Would have been really nice to take that crit and smack their Vanguard with it, but since I've lost my overtrigger, that's not happening. Looks like he did. In the end, he did decide to not defend it, and we're gonna swing with the second column. And this he might defend. He might want to keep that rear guard because he will be going into his final rush turn, next turn. Luckily, I am only at 2 damage. I could take some hits. Probably again confirming. Yeah, and he's gonna not defend it as well. So unfortunately, That was actually a really good like setup turn for me. Put a lot of power on the board, but unfortunately luck was on Dale's side there, and the over trigger petered out and just stonewalled my play. But he still had 4 damage. The unlucky of not getting a trigger when he did no guard on his Vanguard's on my Vanguard's wing was extra unfortunate on my part. But we'll go from here. He's gonna go into his turn. He is in final rush. He's gonna put a Mary Jo on the board. Nope. Actually, he's gonna take it back. Ah, yes, the Persona ride. It's very important. And again, like I mentioned earlier, this is mostly fun. We don't take these games that seriously. So if we can just do a quick ward state adjustment, we will. So that'll give him 10,000 power to his front row, and the draw. Don't forget to draw. I think you might have forgotten to draw. I didn't see it. If you saw it, you can leave a comment below and say if he drew there or not. But this will be a little scary, right? Because without the Persona ride of the before, he was able to do a fair bit of damage, and now he has it with his Marie Joie, and now he's gonna play. I forget, it might be, was that held that? I forget what that order is called, but it basically gives more power to his front row, and he gets a draw. So that front row is getting extra scary now, and it's not over yet. If he's got any Dobers, which I'm assuming he does. Oh, that's not a Dober, that's a rear guard, so it looks like he's doing a soul count, but he should have 6 because he did Persona ride, and he got his ride up line as well. Not to mention when he swings with Marie Joie, he can just move 1 unit to soul and get a soul charge, so he's going to have more than enough. And he's going to play another rear guard just to get those units on the board, because he's going to want to move the soul. Now, unfortunately, the glare on his furthest rear guard makes it so we can't see, but I'm assuming it's a Marie Joie. Maybe when he moves it, when he turns it when he rests it, I should say. There we go. I'm mixing up all my trading card lingo here. So I'm just going to swing. That's a scary Marie Joie. That's basically 40 by yourself, plus the booster. That's looking close to 50, around probably 53, 55. And that's restanding. So I'm going to drop... front, looks like I'm dropping the front order. Oh, maybe not. Might just take this because it is pretty. Yeah, I'm just gonna take it. That is a nasty call. And there's maybe too many cards right off the bat to draw. Whereas like maybe I can save some cards and guard it for later. Then swing with his rear guards again. Again, it's another scary column. Unfortunately, we can't tell what that is. I missed it there. It's too covered the glare for a second, but I couldn't recognize it. You can leave another comment in the bottom if you recognized it. Luckily, I did go into the front trigger there. It's going to be absolutely clutch here. Because that's 10,000 power to the front row. Nice defense trigger. Defense trigger is so helpful versus Bruce. Those 5 attacks are truly nasty. Now, luckily, I have a perfect guard for his Vanguard swing. I can discard a Prison Dragon. So now I have at least 2 dragons in play now. So I can definitely do some pretty scary plays as well. Putting 2 of them on the board, they'll both get 1,000 in a crit off of the Alchemagic. However, Dale did get not only did he get a heal, so he healed again, but he also got the draw, so that's more cards in hand, and he's moving away from lethal between not taking damage thanks to the over trigger and the heal he had earlier. So this does make me nervous because the longer the game goes, the less dangerous Zorga becomes, because I begin to run out of resources, whereas Bruce can at least do the same thing he just did here again, and he's got a nice big hand to play with as well. So it looks like I'm going to take a rear guard skill there as well and guard 1. So turn to pass turns over to me. So I set my board, I draw for my turn, I do a Persona ride, get another draw. Now if I don't have an order in hand, I'm in trouble. And I'm already in trouble because now I'm sitting at 5 damage. Dale has healed to 3. So my chances of winning this game, if basically that's the because I don't think I can break his hand, even if I can get my board up to like very strong numbers with the prison dragons. But I will use the Hendrina, get the mill. I'm guessing I'm going for nectar. I'm going for a nectar play here, so I need the 15, at least 15 in the drop zone. Trying to decide how am I gonna do this, because like I do need to. If I can kill the prison dragon, I can basically play anything on top of the prison dragon. I can kill it, but it looks like So we're just gonna go. So we're gonna go for a nectar play. So we're gonna a nectar with my Grief Despair. No, nectar is free to play. There's no cost associated to it, and then we're doing a quick count. Probably playing. I probably have around 20. I have probably around 20 cards in the drop. So I'm gonna have to do the math here. So it should be a 20,000 on top. So look, I'm gonna give it. So 20k to Hendrina plus the crit, and then I will also give 10,000. I'll give 10,000 with the 3 units thanks to Grief Despair rejections. We'll give it to Hendrina. So see, I have at least 15, which it looks like I put 20 on the Hendrina, so so I have at least 20 there, and we'll give the power to Headhunter, and then we'll have the dragon that's already in the drop zone revive. Because unfortunately, like I can't really put I can't use Nectar on Dragon because he misses the timing if he's in the drop. He only appears in the drop zone after all the orders have resolved. Luckily, he gives himself a crit, so this is a pretty scary board. There's crits on both the rear guards before drive checks. They're very strong. The Hendrina is like probably swinging for around 50k. At least 50, because she is base 10, and I have not only do I put 30 on top of her, but I also have the Persona Ride. So that's the first. I'm gonna start with I always swing with the Vanguard first, because this is a rear guard sanction trick. I want the triggers. So unfortunately, I did lose. I don't have my over trigger, so it's gonna be tricky. It's gonna be tricky to win this. And Dale's asking for a count on the rear guards to see like what he guards, what he doesn't guard, because he could no guard the Vanguard. If I would need to get double crits to kill him here, because he is at 3 damage. He did heal away from lethal twice there. Because if he hadn't gotten both those heals and the over trigger, he would be at 5 damage, or he would have lost here at this point. So luck has definitely been on Dale's side this turn, but he is going to no pass this completely, because that looks, can't tell what they all are, but that's at least 2 crits. So, and then I get no triggers. And I'm going to swing with my massive Hendrina column, which he must perfect guard this. He either takes it or perfect guards it, and he's going to take it since it's only 1 crit. And then he could probably more easily guard. And he gets the defensive trigger as well. So this makes my last dragon hit that much weaker. Still swinging pretty strong. It's probably swinging for about 30. Looks like around 33. And then, yes, so 2 triggers to guard. So that was about as strong as of a board I could probably make this turn. So since it didn't kill him, I don't think I'll be able to guard here. I am sitting at 5 damage. The heals and the overtrigger definitely saved Dale here and kept him in the game. But we'll see how his play is. He is in Final Rush, of course, because he starts the turn as Bruce. So let's see what he decides to play. So he doesn't have a Persona Ride, looks like. So he's going to call in Steam Golem, which Dale's a big fan of Steam Golem. It is I have to admit, is a pretty nice card. There's an argument to say that you can definitely cut it, but the fact that like on Final Rush and I think it was on play, you can counterblast 1 to give it 15,000 power, and that stays for a turn. These things will swing for like 60, and I'm going to use the order again to get the draw. Give his front row 10k if I remember correctly. If he calls something as well from his hand, yeah, there it goes. So already now I'm starting to sweat bullets, because that is a nasty board. That golem's 35 by himself, and there's a Dober behind there, so he's gonna be able to give his yeah. So it is a Marie Joie that he's got there on his the upper. I guess it would be his left. So he's gonna swing in with his golem, and yeah, I decided that's gonna be game. I don't have the hand to guard, so Bruce wins 2-1. GG, well played. So yeah, so that's a match of Zorga versus Bruce. I hope you enjoyed it. If you could leave a comment or like, that'd be great.